What is sickening is that Amazon has abandoned any national allegiance. Amazon's sole focus is on lining its own pockets. Remember, elites have no party, elites have no nation. Their loyalty is to the balance sheet and the stock price at the expense of the American worker.
Quite a shift in terms of the people who are supporting Trump. In recent years, it has been revealed also that China, our #1 geopolitical threat, is buying up our farmland. Lawmakers have taken steps to put a stop to that, and we commend them for it. But there is another globalist threat buying up our country, and that is the billionaire class. From tech overlords like Bill Gates grabbing up swaths of middle America to investment giants like BlackRock buying up homes to turn around and rent them to struggling families. And incidentally, plucking out would-be assassins to star in their feel-good ads. The American dream and America itself are under siege by a self-installed ruling class that worships global interests. It's not about the money, it's about the agenda, right? So what does that actually translate into geopolitically, economically? These oligarchs, or controligarchs, as our next guest calls them, have enough sway over the course of all of our futures. So what are they doing in preparation for 2025? Some of them are jumping in behind Trump. Others are continuing to bankroll Kamala. Even Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, who is not famous for his pro-liberty, pro-Trump views, admits his admiration for Trump just recently.
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time. And that includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But, and I think, look, at some level as an American, it's hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
If there's anyone who can tell us what's going on with these guys, it's our next guest. He's the best-selling author of Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Seamus Bruner. Seamus, welcome back.
Hey, Chanel, it's great to be with you. Yeah, it is complicated times right now. It's hard to tell who's on whose side.
It really is. And my question to you, having researched these big names for years, is this shift a genuine shift, or are guys like Zuckerberg just paying lip service to what seems to be the winning team?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Just a few weeks ago, after the devastating debate performance by Joe Biden, a lot of people thought that it was just, the race was over. Donald Trump will win, especially after the egregious assassination attempt. They thought Trump had it in the bag. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden is out, Kamala Harris is in, and the big money donors who had started trying to cancel their donations to Joe Biden, they're all back in. So there's a ton of controligarchs who are funding Kamala Harris. Bill and Melinda Gates are very much pro-Harris. Sheryl Sandberg, the Meta COO, former Meta COO, she's of censorship fame. Reed Hastings, Reid Hoffman, they're all in on Kamala. I believe Reed Hastings, he's the co-founder of Netflix. He has donated $7 million. Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, he's up near $2 million to Kamala. So that explains some of this mysterious $200 million windfall that she's gotten. Others, George and Alex Soros, they're perennial big money in politics guys, 100 million plus to the Biden effort, now Harris effort. So plenty of controligarchs are funding Kamala Harris. That's how she's getting hundreds of millions of dollars seemingly overnight. But you're right, there are also controligarchs who have seemingly switched sides. And so it remains to be seen if they just were the smart money backing Trump because they thought it was a shoo-in. And now if Kamala Harris seems viable, they'll switch to her. Very confusing times. The big tech guys, though, there's a striking number of them, and I know that they're controversial figures. They're celebrated by our side as these white knights. Let's say Elon Musk, for example, Peter Thiel, for example, of Palantir. They're all backing Trump now, and there's several more kind of in this PayPal mafia who seem to possibly be wanting to ride the Trump train to technocracy.
Well, they seem also, you mentioned PayPal, but they share a mutual interest, I think, in cyber currency, in digital currency, and from what I've read, it seems that Thiel and Musk, they're very much against the centralization of any kind of cyber currency. I can't help but wonder if that's kind of their genuine platform that they're getting behind Trump for, or if there's some other issues that are on their minds as far as liberty-minded billionaires, who we think are good. Could it just be cyber currency and then the future of the economy they're worried about? Are there other assets that they're concerned under Kamala Harris presidency?
Well, certainly Trump will be the best president for crypto. So if you're a crypto fan, Donald Trump was just at this Bitcoin conference and said on day one he will fire SEC chair Gary Gensler, and that's a very welcome move. This guy has been totally corrupt. Trump got standing ovations when he said that. He was sort of surprised. And so this is the guy who wants to regulate crypto, decentralized cryptocurrencies, right, in favor of a central bank digital currency. So that would be great. And certainly Elon Musk and a lot of these sort of libertarian types out in Silicon Valley, they welcome that move. I do believe, I think there's plenty of evidence to show that the big switch to Trump, whether it's David Sachs and the OANN podcast, and David Sachs and those guys, they were all pro DeSantis. They were very much not in favor of Trump for a while. Even the conservative big tech controligarchs. What it seems to be is that Donald Trump has now said he's going to staple H-1B visas to diplomas. That was not the Trump of 2016. The Trump of 2016 says we need to take a look at immigration very carefully. And it's not a very populist message to say, well, yeah, we want to close the border, but we also want to import millions and millions of people from other countries to replace these high-skilled tech jobs. And so Silicon Valley loves the H-1B visa. They would love to staple green cards to every diploma. And so I would say that that's probably the largest financial move that they support Trump. Trump wouldn't have said that 8 years ago. That was a Hillary Clinton actually position. That line has existed for a very long time. Mitt Romney was a big fan of the staple green cards to diplomas.
Right.
And really what that is giving the high-tech jobs to not Americans, but immigrants.
Well, that raises the question of whether or not these, as you say, these controligarchs are indeed entering into a shifting playing field where there's a new dividing line. Is the new dividing line this cryptocurrency and immigration discussion? And what does that landscape look like for the upcoming election? I know we just watched Venezuela undergo a very tumultuous election, and their communist dictator, Maduro, clings to power in a way that's really raising a lot of eyebrows. And people are pointing out the money that was pouring into Venezuela. You have all these outside influences, and we can't help but wonder if that's happening here in the United States on a more underhanded way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Venezuela election was a total sham. They just declared victory, even though the opposition candidate against Maduro was seen to be getting close to 40% over Maduro. He was up 70-30 based on exit polling and based on the numbers that were coming out very early on. Now, what happened was the data transmission lines apparently were shut down, and the results were delayed by regime-controlled apparatus. I don't know if there was like a leaky drain pipe or something in one of the counting centers, but all of a sudden the regime media comes out and declares Maduro the victor. Now, I will say that Donald Trump courting these big tech guys is actually, in some ways, it could be a positive development, at least for his electoral chances, because we're not going to be able to have the same thing that happened in 2020. I mean, Elon Musk deserves enormous credit for opening up Twitter, opening up X to the truth. And so it's not going to be as easy to just shut down discussions. And it's sort of like fool me once in 2020. That's one thing. But in 2024, they are not going to be able to shut down the counting in all of the swing cities overnight. And then we all wake up the next morning with a new victor.
Real quick, before I let you go, last question. The Biden administration is now pushing for term limits in the Supreme Court and also pushing for ways to transparently oversee any kinds of gifts or benefits that justices receive. Do you think this would actually have an effect on keeping the Supreme Court on the up and up?
Well, Biden and the Democrats have been doing this for a long time. They've been trying to cast aspersions and delegitimize the Supreme Court simply because they don't like some of the rulings that are coming out. But a lot of their justices, have been actually siding with the conservatives. It has not been just a totally partisan line on all of these decisions. Joe Biden, it's laughable in the op-ed that he wrote about no one is above the law, therefore we got to reform the Supreme Court. No one is more above the law than Joe Biden and his family, who just continue to escape justice.
Well, just the irony of a man who has served over 5 decades in Congress calling for term limits on the Supreme Court justices. Seamus Bruner, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chanel.